When Jill was really sick and we were doing those daily updates and getting all the support in return, I remember telling somebody that it felt like the whole world, like every person in the world was praying for and rooting for Jill. That made such a huge difference to get through that tough time.
Definitely. I wouldn't be here, I think, without it, and just all the hope and support.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crazy Good Turns, the podcast that recognizes and celebrates people who do great things for others. I'm your host, Frank Blake, and in today's episode, we bring you the story of one of the most helpful, longest running, and perhaps the most underappreciated success stories on the internet. The website CaringBridge dates back to the earliest days of the World Wide Web. It existed before Facebook, Google, and so many other major platforms that dominate today's landscape. And you could argue that CaringBridge represents the very best of those idealistic early days online. The website was intended to be a place to provide love and support for people facing a major illness or injury. It's a platform for connecting people who are going through a terrible health ordeal with family, friends, and others who care and want to help. After more than 27 years of operation, CaringBridge remains true to that mission today. And they've achieved some really impressive milestones along the way. There were more than 112 million visits to the site last year alone. 300,000 people visit the platform every single day to offer love and encouragement to someone else. Those visitors post, on average, 1,600 positive messages every hour of every day. Throughout it all, the platform has remained free for families to use. There are no advertisements. That's right, no ads. All of it is freely available to those in need. So today, we're going to shine a little more light on this great service. We'll introduce you to Tia Newcomer, CEO of the CaringBridge platform. She served in that role since taking over for the founder in 2021. Tia arrived after a successful career in healthcare and business. She also has a personal connection with the organization and its mission based on health challenges her own family has weathered. She'll explain. But that's not all. We also wanted to show you just how deeply CaringBridge can affect its users. To tell that side of the story, we bring you the family members of one of our show's producers, Megan Hanlon. Her cousins, Dave and Jill Alecki, have used the CaringBridge platform for several years, starting when Jill was diagnosed with an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Throughout the episode, we'll switch between our conversations with Tia, Dave, and Jill to help you get a complete picture of how CaringBridge has helped the lives of so many. We'll start with Tia, and here she is sharing the story of how CaringBridge began. Well, Tia, welcome to Crazy Good Turns. This is such a treat to meet you. I will say one of the things that's been the most interesting to me in 10 years now of doing podcasts for Crazy Good Turns is finding people and organizations that really have, in a positive way, transformed and used modern technology. And in looking at CaringBridge and what you and your team have done, I think you may be the best example we've ever found. And so I'd love, just at the start, for the few listeners who don't know what CaringBridge does, if you would give a description of what CaringBridge does.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to dive into this. So CaringBridge was founded 27 years ago. And I like to share that because if you recall that time, that was 1997. Yeah. The internet was 2 years old.
Barely born.
Right, barely born. And the other thing I like to say is that Mark Zuckerberg was all of 13 years old.
Yeah.
So I credit our founder, Sana Maring, for truly founding the first social media platform for good, and we have remained for good. So you asked me a question, what is CaringBridge? CaringBridge is a platform that allows you as a caregiver or a patient that's going through a significant health journey to activate and rally your community of your choice in support. And so if you think about those acute moments when either you've been diagnosed with cancer, a sudden accident has happened, a tragic illness you've been diagnosed with, the first thing that people that love you and that are in your community are asking is, what's going on and how can I help? And that's how CaringBridge was born, is to really enable that globally, all of your network, whether it's 5 people or thousands of people, to be able to rally around you and support.
Which, without this, would have been so difficult to do. I mean, as an individual, if you were trying to do this, whether you're a caregiver or the patient, incredibly difficult.
Very, very. And in fact, let me kind of share the founder's story, Sana Mering. Her very best friend had a premature baby that was in the NICU. So again, this is a critical, you talk about those acute moments, unexpected health journeys that people go through. And she reached out to Sana, her best friend, and said, I am focusing 100% on Bridget, their newborn baby. I need you to reach out to our friends and family and tell them what's going on. And so Sana had a list of literally over 100 people that were in their community of friendship. And on her second call, 30 minutes, lots of emotions, saying the same thing over and over. She's like, I've got 97 more people to call. There's got to be a better way. And she went down to her basement as a woman in STEM and an entrepreneur and coded the first CaringBridge page. So it is truly, to your point, it is the easy button for ensuring that your community knows what's going on, but also can show up and support, which is so, so important.
So I love this statistic, and there are so many aspects of CaringBridge that are interesting to get into, but one of them is just how you've grown in the last 25 plus years. I love the statistic, I think I've got this right, that there are 1,600 positive messages an hour posted on CaringBridge. Now that's just crazy. That's, and 1 million pages. So instances of people using CaringBridge, 1 million created since 1997.
Yes. And I always like to also share on top of that, those numbers always blow me away when I talk about them, right? And the power of community, and especially when you think about the world right now where we're craving that social connection and the community. Sometimes we forget that we have this great community around us. CaringBridge has been there to activate it. The other stat that I like to share is we have over 300,000 people a day on the platform that are rallying around that person in support. So if you think about the power of community, whether your next door neighbor or across the globe, a friend that you may have made along the way, that's the power of CaringBridge.
Yeah. And really extraordinary reach. And yet for the extraordinary reach, I've heard you talk and I've heard you describe, for example, for cancer, people who are suffering from cancer, as broad as your reach is, you're still only reaching a small percentage of folks, right?
Yes, it's the biggest opportunity and the biggest pain point we have, sitting here at 27 years of that. We have grown by word of mouth. When people use CaringBridge, I have yet to meet someone that says, yeah, it didn't meet me where I needed, and fill in the blank. Everyone I meet, and it's the most humbling and rewarding experience that I have as the CEO, is people share their stories with me all the time. I think what's frustrating, on the other hand, is we need more people to know about it. And so the team I have is an amazing team. We're small and mighty, and we're trying to get integrated at point of diagnosis or discharge, because that's when people need CaringBridge. And again, it's no cost. And so we're really drumming up a lot of attention, and we're trying to integrate into hospital systems and clinics where people need us the most. So it's a big mission, and it's a big task ahead, but that is one of the biggest, you kind of scratch your head. You're like, we know that people, when they use it, love it and recommend it. And how do we get the either funding or that viral moment that enables everyone to know about CaringBridge?
So I love behind you as you're speaking, there's a wall with your mission statement, which is a world where no one goes through a health journey alone. I mean, what an amazing mission statement.
It is. It's so powerful and so expansive and so grounding for what we do every day. And we've got 4 values that we use as an organization that also ground us. And I like to share these because when I think of the work that the team does, and this importantly, yes, it's an internal values system, but it also reflects the values of the people that rely on CaringBridge every day. And so when we look at things and make decisions, we look at, is this helping to make connections? That's one of our values. The second is, does this give hope? We see hope on the pages of CaringBridge every single day. So how do we make that easier? Do we and are we enabling offering guidance? And so a lot of the things you see on CaringBridge, again, this resonates as much with my team as it does to the people who are using our platform.
As we said earlier, millions of people have set up a CaringBridge page since its launch in 1997. Dave and Jill Alecki are just one example. They first turned to CaringBridge in 2019 when Jill was diagnosed with an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Jill was just 36 years old at the time. Here she explains how they got started on the platform.
So we just recently celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. About a year and a half after we were married, we had our oldest, Cooper, and then kept going. And in 10 years, we had 5 kids, and we were loving it and still do love it. And when our youngest was, I don't know, maybe 8 months old, I started getting these really weird symptoms, like a really, really bad hot flashes and night sweats in the middle of the night. And then I'd get really, really, really cold with a fever, and then I get really, really hot. My mom had already actually set up the CaringBridge because I was really sick. We just were in the middle of trying to figure it out, sort of.
Because it probably took a month and a half to get to the diagnosis.
Right. And I wasn't
But you were
even
sick
fully
that whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good idea at some point.
Yep.
And even when I went in the hospital, we hadn't finished I never had a PET scan at the beginning, and there was other tests I didn't get in advance that normally I would have got, but we ran out of time because one day my fever went to 106.8 when my mom was home helping me. She was like, you got to get in a cool bath, and I was like, no, because I was so cold because I had the chills. And when I had the chills, it was like rigors. I was like shaking violently. And yeah, it was all very strange to me. I didn't know what was happening. And so it did take a while to diagnose. And so my mom, maybe she had started keeping up to Jill is sick. And, maybe she started the meal train before we actually even had the diagnosis, which was also helpful because I didn't have a lot of pep in my step to cook dinner or anything. And our kids were still pretty young.
11 and younger at the time.
Right. It was more communication about what was happening with me and the rest of the family.
Right. I mean, I would guess that she was asking for prayers.
Yes, a lot of prayers.
And then eventually it turned into asking for help.
Jill battled cancer for 2 years. She went through chemotherapy, radiation, 2 relapses, and a donor stem cell transplant. She suffered many setbacks along the way. At one point, an infection that led to septic shock nearly took her life. She survived, but the infection resulted in the amputation of both of her legs. Throughout it all, CaringBridge served as a source of information for loved ones and desperately needed inspiration for Dave and Jill.
When Jill was in the worst condition, we used it and needed it more.
CaringBridge for us was just an amazing tool, mostly for prayer. Our family and friends and acquaintances and their friends and our friends' friends, family friends, we had so many people praying for me and for our family. And it worked. I mean, I almost died 3 times on my last stint in the hospital. I was there for 3 months after sepsis and a couple infections. And every time the doctors were like, we're not sure she's going to make it through the night. Or one time it was, if she makes it through the night, she'll have to be on oxygen for the rest of her life. And none of that happened.
What I would say is the times that were the hardest and the times we needed it the most. Jill already talked about the spiritual support that we got from it, but also the emotional support. So when you make a post, everybody out in the community can make comments, and a day later, 2 days later, you can go back and read through it. And sometimes there was 100 comments.
Yeah.
And it was all very uplifting, encouraging words from people.
Sometimes good advice.
Yeah, good advice, prayers. So when times are really tough, those uplifting comments and the volume of comments really makes a huge difference in keeping you strong and keeping you going and fighting. So
to the point you don't want to let people down.
Yeah, when Jill was really sick and we were doing those daily updates and getting all the support in return, I remember telling somebody that it felt like the whole world, like every person in the world was praying for and rooting for Jill. That made such a huge difference to get through that tough time.
Definitely. I wouldn't be here, I think, without it, and just all the hope and support. Still now, it's still going. Dave just posted today. So because I'm in patient rehab, working on walking, like intensive 3 hours a day therapy to get stronger so I can walk independently. We're obviously posting way less, which when I'm reading CaringBridge and people are posting less, it's usually really good, It means they're doing great and it's not an urgent matter for them to ask for tons of prayers. But we do still try to post because, like, right now I'm back in an inpatient rehab to try to do some intense therapy for walking. Because when I first got out of the hospital after my 4-month stay, I was so weak and I hadn't even had my amputations yet. But we've been continuing to post about like my amputations and I had to have a shoulder replacement, all related to that original diagnosis and treatment. Yeah. We still post. And I don't know when it'll end. I mean,
right. And
hopefully we won't have to post too much anymore once I can get walking, maybe.
Right. Except for I don't want all of the posts to be like a setback or something that, only post when something bad happens. So I do try to put posts out there when, really great things are happening or something good happens or maybe a milestone's achieved. So I think we'll keep that going. And then there are some setbacks every once in a while. Like, Jill mentioned she had to have a shoulder replacement surgery. She had to have a hip surgery. So again, we definitely post those out right away to ask for prayers and ask for support. And
also to share, like, it's, maybe you don't have cancer anymore, but it doesn't necessarily end. For other cancer survivors, you want their family and friends to know, to keep asking how they're doing, keep supporting them. So hopefully sharing that helps other supporters think about that stuff.
The Alecki family story is not an isolated one. Many families who use CaringBridge return to it in order to encourage others. It's a great example of one good turn leading to another. However, even with so many people using the platform, CaringBridge is only scratching the surface. There are far more people facing health issues who are not on the platform than those who are. We asked Tia how she planned to address this problem. Last year alone, 112 million, over 100 million people using this platform, and yet you're still a very small percentage of the overall need. I think one of the things that interests me just looking at this is so many people would, I think, approach the problem and say, okay, now, how do I monetize this platform to extend it? And I know that there's going to be a vast interest of people who would love to reach a community of caregivers and patients in need. That is not what you are doing. And I'd love for you to explain the why, because I think that's really important. And what I view as what you're doing with the Wilson Foundation is kind of an alternative to that. If you walk through that.
Absolutely. Gosh, it's so crisp how you said that, the monetization, because I have many conversations, and you can imagine my first year was spent fielding calls from hundreds of startups, great founders. What they wanted was our audience, right? So funny enough, right? We want to grow reach, but they wanted the reach that we already had. Also talking to big health systems, right? When you talk about privacy and you talk about data, they wanted access to the specific data that we've been sitting on for 27 years. There's a gold mine of, as you can imagine, insights in that. So what we did a lot of reaching out to our current customer base, non-customers. So we did a lot of research when I came in and thinking about how do we fund exponentially the mission while staying true to the fact that we are a trusted, and that I'm going to come back to that, a trusted nonprofit, no-cost platform. And so that trust, as we dug into the data and the feedback that we were getting from our users and non-users, was if we were a for-profit, we would not get the same trust, nor would we get the same use. If we sold ads, for example, you can imagine Facebook, you can imagine all of the ways that they've monetized and grown. That was like a showstopper, that we would probably lose 50% of our audience if we started to do that. And let's go back to, and this is probably the most important point, the fundamental insight that we have, and it's not only that we have, it's very well known in the healthcare and caregiver industry, is that caregivers are overwhelmed. And overwhelmed with, obviously, the tasks that they're taking care of their loved one. That loved one's trying to get better for all the reasons, fill in all the treatments that are going on. So if you think about that fundamental, I always call it the floating iceberg, right? We're seeing this much of what the chaos that's going on in that caregiver's life, taking care of that patient. Underneath is a giant iceberg of other things, from tasks to emotional to physical strain, all of the things. And so when you come back to that fundamental insight, to put ads in front of people, to put, a lot of people want us to be the referral point. So think of a giant marketplace of products that we would get recurring revenue from. It became a no. That's not, we would lose our audience. And if our whole goal is to increase impact and to increase reach, that then drives revenue, right? I'm not saying we don't need revenue, but we stay very true to our principles of, does it drive impact for our caregivers and patients? Does it drive reach, meaning exponential number of people? And then the revenue, so to speak, will fall out.
I just want to pause there, because approaching this not knowing that much about CaringBridge, a little bit, but not that much. I believe that we all have a rooting interest in your success, because aside from the topic, having something that is trusted and pure, as you describe it, is hugely important, and I think can be one of the most important things for how we use the internet and how we communicate with each other. So I congratulate you, because I think the siren song of, oh, gee, we can do ads and everybody will be going along with the ad, without understanding the trust that you're undermining, the compromises that you're making. I mean, you make it sound like an easy decision, but I'm sure there were a lot of people who were, and probably still are, weighing in pretty heavily with you.
I appreciate you pausing, because it is a constant, I call it, I'm holding two truths, and they are sometimes at odds, right? Are the reason we still exist. If you just think about the technology tsunami that has happened since 1997, again, I'll bring up Meta, Facebook, Instagram, name Snapchat, TikTok. Think about all of the platforms that are communication platforms, and yet CaringBridge is still here, still existing. And that was a question I had to scratch my head and ask the board when I was interviewing, why do you think?
Why isn't there a Facebook page that does this already? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think I appreciate you pausing there, because it is the two truths are, on one hand, we have to grow our reach to continue to drive the impact, to obviously continue to drive the revenue so that we still exist long term. So, and the other truth that we hold is we know the trust that we have is the biggest thing, the biggest value that we have. And so how do you hold those two truths and still grow an organization so that we can fulfill our mission of a world where no one goes through a health journey alone? So not easy.
Not easy. And again, and I may be misreading this, but I look at the work you're doing with the Wilson Foundation as part of the way of solving that puzzle. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and you're talking specifically about the grant they gave us to really uncover what is the impact that we're driving around solving loneliness, isolation, and overwhelm for caregivers. That's what.
Yes, and making this a standard of care. Making CaringBridge a standard of care. So you describe it. I was really intrigued by it.
Yes, and such generosity exists out there, as you can imagine. And I think some of the data that we have, again, we de-identify, but we look for trends. We have a great team. When I say team of two, one's an intern, of data analysts that really look at, okay, what's going on in these pages? What are we? And we have it's an IRB, which is an internal review board scientific study that we
But this is very important for people to understand how the medical world works. This is very important.
Thank you, Frank, because the study that is funded is fundamentally doing two things. We have 4 questions on the front, easy questions, and they measure, people have to opt in and they have to answer the questions, call it every 30 days, but it's really 4 questions around how they are feeling emotionally. Are they overwhelmed? And what is meeting them? They're, again, 4 simple questions. They're actually from UCLA, and so they've been used for 30 plus years. And this is what Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation really liked, is that we were using methodologies that already existed, but within a platform that has been around for 27 years. So let me maybe talk a little bit about why that's important. A lot of scientific research invents a tool that will never see the light of day to study outcomes with people that are opting into a study. So I think the biggest power of what we're doing is, here's a platform that is actually being used out in the world. Again, 300,000 people visiting every single day, 45,000 caregivers on our platform. Here's a platform that we can actually get real world tangible data. And oh, by the way, the product already exists and it can inform how we make the product better as we move forward. So not only is it measuring the impact on that overwhelm and the feelings that lead to isolation and loneliness, it is also looking at when you start with CaringBridge, so it's usually at that diagnosis moment, okay, you've activated your community 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later. So really looking at what I would call the longitudinal impact of rallying your community in support, both emotional and physical. And no one has done that at large with a tool, importantly, that is already in the market. So then we can take that data. So your point of really getting integrated into healthcare, we need to be at point of diagnosis and discharge. We can go in with real world outcomes data and say, this is no cost. We need you to sit next to a patient or a caregiver and make sure that they rally their community, because here's the outcomes difference. And that's the importance of the study.
I think what's so fascinating about this is you are taking the sort of intuitive learning from this, which is, and again, just stop me when I've got this wrong, but that part of healing is a positive attitude and that sense of people around you caring, that's actually sort of integral to the healing process. You are going to prove that, and by virtue of proving that and proving the availability through your platform, by virtue of proving that, you'll say to the hospitals, this needs to be your standard of care. You need to link your patients with this. Am I reading that right?
Yes, I love that synthesis. I often say, you'll hear me say this on different forums, that CaringBridge fills in the messy middle that healthcare can't see. and that their community often doesn't see, and it makes it visible. And then it also doesn't only make it visible, it actually provides a solution around exactly what you're talking about, emotional, social, and that tangible support.
It's both exciting from a medical perspective, but also just exciting for what the potential is for CaringBridge.
Yes, that's the thing that keeps me and the team really rallied behind what we do, because we know the power of CaringBridge, and anyone that's used it knows the power of it. And we just want to shout with a megaphone, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, the sort of siren song of give me ad revenues and I'll do this all by my ad reach must be difficult to overcome. But I love the fact, too, you've accomplished this with, you say your mighty lean team. It really is. You've got a small team.
Yeah, I'll put it in perspective. So we have 40 people in our team. We have 4 engineers. So in context, Meta has 40,000. Epic, health system that runs all of our records has 20,000. You start whittling it down. I mean, we have 4 engineers that are pumping out innovation, honestly, every week. And I love talking to my product leads. 4 engineers are creating some of the improvements that you're seeing. And I want to give a shout out to my team. When I came in, and this happens all the time in any company, but we had 25 years of tech debt. So what does that mean? Sana Maring, our founder who coded the first CaringBridge page, we still, underneath all this ball of yarn, right, was her first code. And It, unfortunately, like during COVID, when we had hospitals calling us, can you just tap into our EHR because no one can come and see patients? Can we tap in? We couldn't, because that code was so antiquated. So that's a real life example. That team remediated, and we are now on a tech stack, for those of you that are tech geeks, that can integrate with any new technology that is needed to help our caregivers and patients in a different way, or integrate into hospitals if we so choose, or that is a path forward. So that's a huge lift. And if you're a technologist, you are like, oh yeah, that is not easy. It wasn't fun, let me tell you. And for those of you out there that are listening and went through that first 30 days with us, any cutover with new technology has bumps. And what was tough for us is we knew our caregivers and patients, like we were saying, are overwhelmed, and they're in this very vulnerable moment. And all of a sudden the technology that they relied on had a lot of issues. But wow, this small mighty team in 30 days got it fixed and continues to innovate.
I'm curious, are there features of CaringBridge that you've found that caregivers or patients really appreciate that are a bit surprising to you? You say, oh, gee, I didn't realize that would be such a hit.
Yes, this will seem obvious when I say it, and we are so thankful for the users that give us feedback. When you share a CaringBridge page to social media, right? Because we have a lot of people that will share the link to Facebook or all of the social medias, Instagram, etc. In our first launch, after we remediated the technology, it was just a simple link, and it just showed our logo and it said, "Come see Tia's CaringBridge page." The personalization, the ability for that link to show the picture that person shows, the personal side, that emotional connection you have with someone was leaps and bounds. We saw lower engagement with people sharing their site link, their page link on Facebook. And the team just recently fixed that, I'll say. But that directly came from a mom who was just so wonderful and came into our office and shared her experience going through that bumpy transition. But she's like, I got to show you something. I was just talking to the moms in the NICU. And by the way, this mom had just recently lost her child, and was still so generous with her time because she cared so much about CaringBridge and knew how powerful it was, that she came in and said, here's some things that I think need to be looked at. That was one of them. And she was 100% right. And the team, so that's one that was, you think a simple link share, logo versus picture of the person that from the, pulls in from the site. That's one that we all went, wow, personalization matters.
The personal connection is, in many ways, what keeps people coming back to CaringBridge. Jill Alecki says the encouragement she received through the platform helped her get through the toughest of times. It's something she's trying to pay forward today.
CaringBridge gave us so much support and prayers and love. And it was so energizing and helpful to my soul and my heart that it was almost like overflowing. It's like we got to keep this going and help others and, hope it just keeps getting bigger and bigger so that it can reach as many people as possible, even if it's just one person that's mostly by themselves. If they can post it and send it to one other person and then, maybe send it to more people so they can read about them and try to help them, because it can be hard to know people that need help. So CaringBridge is a wonderful way. And like since then, I think we've all encouraged either family or friends to start a CaringBridge for that thing they're going through in hopes that it will bless them as much as we've been blessed. I also have many people I follow on CaringBridge. Some I knew or know, and some I don't know personally. But, when I hear of, friends of friends tell me about this, and I'm like, well, I want to follow and see if we can do something, So a lot of times, like, we will send a meal gift card or something. We try to pay it forward as well. We were so blessed. I mean, we feel like we can never possibly repay that. But any meal requests we get for a meal train or, support on CaringBridge or any way we can help, we try to say yes every time in gratitude for how much we were blessed by so many people.
Jill's cancer has been in remission for 4 years. She continues to recover. The Aleckis continue to use CaringBridge to keep family and friends updated on Jill's progress. They are a CaringBridge success story, one of many. We wanted to know which stories affected Tia the most profoundly. Do you have a CaringBridge story that made a particular impact on you? I mean, I'm sure there are thousands of them, but does one immediately pop up when I ask the question?
Yeah, so many. I had a slideshow right now just going through my head, like, which one do I pick from? But the one that I'll pick, so there was this made national news, and it doesn't stand out in my head because it made national news, but what stands out is this: when you see the power of CaringBridge in the community at Raleigh, that's what stands out. So this young woman, I think it was 2 summers ago, she was 13 years old with her mom and friends. They were playing on the beach in Florida. They went out to a sandbar. She got attacked by a shark and lost her arm and her leg. And in that moment, right, all the right places, the angels were looking over her, and she was saved. But went from a star volleyball player to losing a leg and an arm and a whole different life, right? They were traveling, so they immediately started a CaringBridge page, made it public. So we do have privacy levels as well. That's another thing that social media doesn't give you. You can make it private, invite only. You can make it public where anyone could search for it. They happen to make it public. We saw over 10,000 people a day interacting with that site, giving this young woman words of encouragement, asking where they could donate. We have a very strong partnership with GoFundMe. Clearly, this was an unexpected medical event, and so they had a GoFundMe site. So you just saw the power of community rallying around a young woman that many of those people did not know. So not only did it help to keep her immediate family and friends informed in this very touch-and-go time, it rallied a national, if not international, community behind this young woman who just had this tragic, very life-changing event. And she's now turned that into her own nonprofit and own speaking about her experience coming out of it. And just watching the way she's so positive about, yes, I don't have an arm and a leg now. She has prosthetics. She talked about her journey of getting into prosthetics. So you just see this arc of this story from tragedy to healing to positivity coming out the other side. And that's a really big example. That happens I have so many stories personally of people reaching out to me, from my past. So again, I have a slideshow of so many examples, but that's one that popped in my head.
Well, you also have a wonderful video that I've seen that features, one of the people featured is just a phenomenal woman from where I live in Atlanta, Lavette Russell, who is featured on the video. We'll include that in the show notes because I think it captures very well just that story that you've given of positivity and the role of positivity and how having that community is so important, both for the caregivers and for the patient.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're going to share that. Yes, she is an amazing force, and yes, the power of CaringBridge shines through her testimony for sure.
I have a few concluding questions. First, what do you think people who know CaringBridge, but sort of know it in a general way, what is it that they may not know that they should know?
It's more than a journaling platform. You'll hear people use that word journaling. It is a communication platform. What's the difference? It enables you, yes, to communicate out to your community. What people don't know and that we're really highlighting and seeing, that's part of the research that's highlighting, is ask for help. And you know what? CaringBridge enables you to ask for all the help you need. You can do it organically through a post. We just launched a feature called Requests, which prompts and gives caregivers or patients categories of help that they might need. And we're seeing off the charts engagement, and off the charts, by the way, I think it was 80% of requests are being filled within 24 hours by your community. So it's not, it's not a journaling platform. It's a communication platform that gets you emotional, social, and tangible support. And I think that's the piece that people don't think of when they talk about CaringBridge. They think of it as a journaling platform for you to communicate out.
That's hugely important. And just listening to the way you talk and the way you have thought about your career, and I'm sure will continue to think about your career, who is inspiring to you? I mean, I'm sure people are listening to this and find you very inspiring. Who do you go, boy, this person, just what they're doing, really, that's inspiring?
Seth Godin. What I learned from him, both through reading his books, but then participating in the Alt MBA, is own your truth, stay in grounded confidence. And I think those two things, oftentimes when you're in the business world, are seemingly challenged, right? You have to show up a certain way. You have to do. So I think Seth Godin is one. The other, and I'll make this more personal, is my husband. He's not perfect, of course. However, having gone through cancer at a young age, and that what you do today is important because you exchange a day of your life for it, has been hugely influential to me. We met when I was 25. So that, when I look at him and the choices in his career and the things he's overcome, if you know a first responder, that is not an easy job, not only physically, but mentally. There's a lot of things that the weight of, imagine exiting people out of the world, the things he's seen that people have done to each other or that do to themselves. And so I think watching his resilience is pretty darn inspiring and makes me better, not only as a leader, but as I make choices for us as a family, but for me and my career as well.
So I ask this question to everyone who's a guest on the show. And the question is, because we celebrate people who do great things for others, and you're doing great things for others, who's done a crazy good turn for you?
So many people, but the ones that stand out are, I'm going to go way back when little Tia was in 4th grade and, kind of a gangly, you can't see me on screen, but I'm like six foot tall. So it's kind of gangly girl. And I had a Coach Keikos in softball that knew how to bring out the best in me. And, I wasn't an athlete. Like, I'm not an athlete at heart. I have to work at it. And I think what he saw is that I had the foundational elements that I didn't know I had. And he saw that I had the drive, and he brought it out of me in the best way that then carried me through to all-star teams, playing basketball, going off to college, playing basketball. So I look at that early. He was the first example of someone that saw something in me that I didn't see and brought it out. And I just have so many examples after him of people that did that, but it was probably because it started so young that I could recognize it and pick up on those things. So he started the catalyst that made me who I am today.
We also wanted to hear from Dave and Jill Alecki. So we asked, who has done a crazy good turn for you?
That is a really tough question. Oh my gosh. How do we pick one? Or
Yeah,
even, oh gosh.
I would have to pick three. I would absolutely have to recognize my parents and Jill, specifically so if I think back to my parents, they gave me an amazing upbringing, everything I can need, sports, school, a wonderful family. The number one greatest gift they ever gave me is passing on the Catholic faith to me. And then to Jill, same thing, meeting Jill strengthened that in me and made it even stronger. And the reason I can say this is because I know I don't think I would have survived this journey. I don't think I would have made it without my faith. That is what gave me the strength to make it through the hardest times, and to support Jill and the family. So for sure, I got to thank my parents and Jill for instilling and strengthening that faith.
I probably have to say the same. My parents and my sister and her family and all of Dave's family, including you. And I have a large and close extended family that has been amazing too. There's so many people, but my faith also has kept me going. And Dave, he has definitely become a complete and total superhero. I mean, it's hard, not only he's worried about me and my health and safety, he's also missing his main partner a lot of the times at home. Or I used to take the kids to school, I used to make their lunches, I used to clean the house, like all these things that we have to adjust that now Dave does, and not to mention physically, he has helped me so much, physically lifting me from the ground or from my wheelchair. Or I can't even imagine how many times you've had to help me do stuff like that.
Piggyback rides are fun.
Yes, piggyback rides. Yes, everything. Absolutely. I knew Dave was awesome and faithful when I married him, but I had no idea what he was going to become. He didn't become some cartoon dad that just sits in his lazy boy and drinks beer and watches football. He's the complete opposite of that. He's a wonderful father and an amazing husband. And his faith has helped my faith, especially when, like, in a more desperation mode, when it becomes harder to believe and I feel despair. He was there to help, and he's raising our kids. God completely, without my knowledge even, gave me the best partner, spouse, friend, husband that I could have ever imagined. I mean, what Dave does for me on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is too much to even capture, I think.
They also wanted to express their gratitude to Tia and her team at CaringBridge.
We'd like to thank her personally, keeping it going, and whoever founded it, that person too. It made such a difference in our life in a really difficult time. So tell her we are grateful, please.
As we talked about earlier, one of the biggest barriers CaringBridge faces today is awareness. For all their success, not enough people know who they are or what they do. So we wanted to wrap up by asking Tia about the best way to connect and spread the word. Now, for people who want to follow you and follow CaringBridge, where should they go? What should they do?
Yes, please go to caringbridge.org. That's our general website. We have Facebook and Instagram. Please follow us there. But yes, and most importantly, if you know someone that's going through a significant health journey, please tell them about CaringBridge. I invite you to set up a page for them, because often it's just that first step that they need someone to do that for. So that's CaringBridge for me. I'm crazy poster on LinkedIn. I probably post 1 or 2 times a week, both on CaringBridge and the things that we're doing, but also on leadership and my musings on leadership and what I see for boards and leaders up and down organizations. You can find me at Tia Newcomer on LinkedIn. I do have an Instagram page, but I keep forgetting, again, we have a small team, right? So everything you see, by the way, is written by me. I don't have a giant I don't have anyone that's writing things for me. So it is all me. I do have an Instagram page, Tia Newcomer. I think it's _CEO. I need to get better at posting there. You're more likely to follow me on LinkedIn if you want real time.
That's fantastic. This has been such a treat. And you're doing an amazing thing. Your organization's doing an amazing thing. Honestly, that there would be less than 50 people accomplishing this and making such a difference is a testament to you, your team, and the power of technology now if it's used in truly a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Tia, Dave, and Jill. I encourage you to check out CaringBridge. It really is a unique internet resource. And while you're there, offer words of support to someone going through an ordeal. As you heard today, your words can make a big difference. If you know of another organization doing great work for others, also please let us know by emailing us at hello@crazygoodturns.org. That's hello@crazygoodturns.org. We always welcome suggestions for people to feature on our show, and several of our guests have come from suggestions from listeners like you. We truly appreciate your listening. And if you like what you've heard, please share Crazy Good Turns with friends. Please also support our show by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform of your choice. And connect with us on the social network of your choice. You'll find us at Crazy Good Turns, all one word. As always, I want to thank the team that makes Crazy Good Turns possible, our producers Brian Sabin and Megan Hanlon, editing and mixing by Score, and Leslie Nunn for keeping this operation going forward. Lastly, most importantly, I want to express my gratitude to you, our listeners, for being part of a community that celebrates people who do good things for others. Your giving of your time to listen to these interviews and acknowledge these good deeds is a crazy good turn of its own. Thank you for your help. Hope to see you again soon in our next episode when we celebrate another crazy good turn.